area and learn about food, local food trends, cooking techniques, and food history. And like we just said, this is really important if we want to make Horton be this culinary destination, because we are focusing specifically on the downtown. But like Todd mentioned, we do have the other sites. We have a lake site and a farm site that can also kind of help bring this culinary destination into essentially 3 different things that can kind of all connect to one another.
And so we started looking at, so now that we kind of know what culinary tourism is, what does that look like? And so we started looking at different precedents of different restaurants and different food marketplaces, and we were looking at this one, Mendocino Farms in Los Angeles, California, and we really were inspired by the use of materials and the warmth they gave you, and also the fact that they had these big open kitchens that you could serve directly and see how they were cooking and preparing the food. We wanted to incorporate that into our own building. And this one is Italy in Chicago, Illinois. And we really, Steve was actually able to visit here, and we really liked how they have these island-type market spaces, and they have all of the food that they're preparing right in front of you, as well as all the ingredients that they have just sitting around like that market station. And so they cook what they sell, and they sell what they cook is what they like to say. And so we wanted to incorporate that kind of thing by using maybe some of the other projects like the farm site, and having them bring their food down to our marketplace or our culinary school, so it really is a whole experience of Horton.
So to get everyone familiar with where Horton is, this is just a map of Northeast Kansas, and then we wanted to kind of point out just the different mileages to from Horton to Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka, Hiawatha, which is also in Brown County and the county seat, as well as St. Joseph, Missouri. And so the idea that if we want Horton to be this culinary destination, all of these fairly large towns are actually really, really close to Horton. You know, you could do something where you could just go for the day, maybe spend a Saturday, go to the farmer's market or the farm or the lake, or you could essentially make it into a weekend destination. So just kind of showing that Horton would be actually a really interesting place to put this, because it is far enough away from all of the bigger cities in Northeast Kansas that you can kind of get away and essentially do this culinary destination. So then zooming in a little bit further, this is the city limits of Horton, and right down below the red square is the downtown area, which we will be focusing on. We chose to put our site just a little bit north, but the reason that we wanted to put it just a little bit north of downtown is Central Avenue is a main north and south access point from Horton, essentially to Hiawatha. It turns into Highway 159. Horton people, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what my research said. And this essentially can get you 14 miles to Hiawatha, and then you can branch off and go to St. Joe or Atchison. So then zooming in one more time, this is the downtown area of Horton. You know, like we said, it's not a very big downtown area, but it is actually really nice. The one thing that we did kind of run into is there's not a whole lot of open space in the actual downtown area. And so, like we just said with Central Avenue, we thought just north of the downtown area, there's 2 sites that go right down the middle, and we thought this would be a really perfect opportunity to essentially create a gateway for Horton, bring people down from, you know, Highway 159 down through Central Avenue, and then they can branch off to the downtown area. And so we essentially called it a gateway. If you want to get, since we could talk about food, kind of a play on words, we also kind of essentially called it a funnel as well.
And so playing off of that gateway and funnel idea, this kind of diagrams how our conceptual masses of the building evolve. We really tried to think about how do we take those 2 lots and make them one, how do we link those 2 sites together. And so we thought about how can we encourage the movement, and sort of thinking about that funnel again, we decided to slant both of the interior sides and see how that affected the program. And we found out that the most influential program spaces that kind of shaped what the building would look like were actually the kitchen spaces because of the large square footage. And so we were able to kind of tilt those off of the normal orthogonal box that we had started with, and that kind of helped influence that shape of the left building. And then we tried to kind of mimic it on the right with sort of slant as well to once again go back to that funnel idea. And then by doing that, we kind of were allowed to block out further spaces on the right, on the market, and so it kind of evolved in this J shape. And we kept thinking about, does this connect? Can we connect it to the landscape? And does this encourage the circulation we're looking And so this is a rough sketch of what our final landscape ended up being. And once again, we were just trying to create two spaces that were also one big space. And so what we have here is like a large open space by the market side, and a smaller, kind of more intimate space for the culinary area. And as you move between the two sites, you can see there's a clear connection. And moving on to the next one. We were thinking that when there's an event going on, you would close off the street and put up these bollards. And so you can have a nice, free-flowing traffic from both sides so that you don't have to worry about, traffic coming down Central. But then when the site is not in use, so like during the week, it would be open, the bollards would be down. It would still continue to be that central axis that it is, and it's so crucial to the town. And so this, we chose this view to kind of emphasize that once again. In the back, you can kind of see some of the just general massing of the downtown area and how it plays into the rest of the context. And once again, you can see that's the street you would come right down through the project. And so this is one of the views from the interior of the Culinary Center, and we'll talk about the program next. And so it was just, for the Culinary Center, it was intended to be both a community space and a teaching space. So we have multiple kitchens for that kind of instruction, as well as education spaces, spaces for an administration office, and bathrooms, MEP, and those other kind of support spaces.
Alrighty, so this is our first floor plan, and as you can see, we have this area down here is our service court with all the storage. We have bathrooms and storage and administration on the side. Our kitchen's here, and then a big open lobby space here. And what's highlighted right here is actually one of our interior lobby views. And we wanted to have a place where people could come and sit, community members could come and enjoy themselves, look into, right here is the demonstration kitchen for cooking classes and things like that. And then off in the background is more of an empty space used for events, and you could set that up as people like. There's a furniture storage closet nearby, so you could have nice tables in there and bring it out for banquets or whatever other kind of event you would. This is another view from the interior, sitting on that table, that benches, and looking out towards the market space. You can kind of see how it connects you to the landscape, and it connects you across to the other building. And this is the second floor plan. And you can see our service core again going right up through from the first floor. And so it's the same on both floors, just about. And then you have the bathrooms and storage here along with the classroom. And then you have all of the kitchens wrapping around this side with the chef's kitchen in the middle with chef's offices. And so what's highlighted there was the teaching kitchen. Here's a view from that. We wanted to bring in a lot of natural light. And we have a lot of our chefs working around the kitchen on different tables and can move around and have a nice view of the fin system we created, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Here's just a perspective section of that. You can see the lobby on the main floor that we looked at earlier with the two kitchens right above it, the administration and classrooms on the side.
And so this is a view into our downtown marketplace area. The function for that was mainly to be a space for people to use for those kind of like weekend events, but also during the week. So what we have are permanent spaces for more what we call thematic vendors, people that would be able to set up and actually have the cooking equipment that they would need to like fry whatever they need to make or prepare whatever they're selling for the day. And then we also have spaces for more temporary vendors, people who would come just on a day-to-day basis, selling whatever they have. Maybe they made it at home and they come in and they sell it there. And then also those support spaces for that as well.
So then going and looking at the floor plan, kind of what we talked about earlier, kind of made a J shape, U shape, whatever. And we kind of have on this, the exterior, we have these permanent stalls for the farmers markets. You could come in and essentially use these spaces for those. And then on the inside, the same U shape, we have all of the vendors. So we have food vendors, the thematic vendors, then they all kind of wrap around. And so the red call out right there is a view of essentially one of those thematic vendors with food vending all around. You kind of can flow through the space as well. One of the things that we also wanted to include was a lot of daylighting. And so we used skylights up at the very up on the top to kind of essentially lead you through the space to all the different vendors and amenities in these spaces. And then, again, this is just another view from the other side, kind of essentially showing this kind of connection from one corner to the other. Perspective section of the downtown marketplace, showing those skylights right there. And then we also wanted to include some, essentially you could use bar height seating right next to the vendors if you wanted to kind of get up close and kind of see what they're doing when it comes to cooking. So kind of giving that opportunity right up next to each of the vendors as well.
All right, and so another thing, not only program and site shape our building, but also the structure. And so we chose to use steel structure so we could have larger spans with a lighter weight. And then we also ended up choosing, with MEP, we chose to use a sprinkler system so we could expand our first floor area and have that be bigger with still it only being a two-story building. And then we ended up choosing a VAV system because of our kitchens that we have. We wanted to have the ability to control the airflow and the spacing within each room, since we do have such a different pieces of the program. Kitchens need a lot more than storage rooms. So we ended up choosing that kind of system. And then we ended up running plumbing through the walls as well. Here's another view of that. You can see how up at the top it's a little bit faded to still show the MEP, but we have ceilings covering the second floor ceilings. Due to code, we couldn't show the exposed structure, but on the first floor lobby, we were able to kind of show that off since we thought about it and had, we wanted to show how the structure from the inside carried over to the structure from the outside. Although they are, one of them is a little bit disjointed from the other, they still continue on your same eye line.
Okay, and another thing that we had to think about a lot with our site was that since we had such a strong emphasis on this building shape being that funnel where the masses of the building are towards the south end of the site, we had to think about what the sun would be like throughout the year. And so this diagram's a set of studies that we did throughout the day, throughout the year, that showed the most dramatic sun angles that we had to deal with. And what we're looking at is we get a lot of sun from the north, and we had to really think about how to kind of bounce that sunlight in and reflect it inside. And so what we ended up coming up with was this fin that we designed. And these three angles here are directly taken from the angles that the sun would be the most dramatic throughout the day and throughout the year once again. And so this fin would be attached to the structure, kind of it would be like a substructure system that attaches to the outside of the building. And what that would allow us to do would be to wash in some light into the interior spaces. And so we have the fin here. You can see on the culinary side that this kitchen, the upper volume that's shown, would be allowed to have that sunlight coming in, and it would kind of wash in light as opposed to having direct sun just come in from the outside. So it would allow a lot of natural daylighting without there being any kind of glare. Since it is a kitchen space, you do need to see what you're doing. It's very based on presentation and appearance, and so we felt that was an important aspect to have and keep.
Okay, and so we also were tying together with the fins. We wanted to keep a kind of certain language between the two, so we ended up using Ipe wood material to put on the exterior. And we feel like, although they are very different buildings and different programs, we could still tie them together in the site to make them feel whole. So we chose the same material across the two, and we had these punched out window volumes that were kind of mimicking each other, although still different, as well as the fins on both sides. We ended up changing the fin structure on the market side so that the angles would match and carry the sun in appropriately. Right. And so, just in conclusion, we were hoping that through creating a unique space that could bring in culinary tourism and a culinary destination, we could make better kitchens and have good food to share among the residents of Kansas and bring them all together. Here's some of our exterior views, just showing how you can experience the space. All right, thank you very much.
We really focused on the past, the present, and the future. And so this image is from the past of Horton, and it's in 1918 when the circus came to town. And as you can see, the street was packed. There were a ton of people there. And then presently, you have the downtown that's being fixed up. It's not really how grand it was before. And the future is this initiative, Reinvent Horton, where they're taking the downtown area and really reinventing it and really making it something that people want to go to. So the architecture, in the past you have the heavy masonry. The present, they still currently have heavy masonry. And then the future, what's the future architecture for Horton?
Okay, and so looking at Horton and our how it connects with the other three projects, we were trying to decide where to put this culinary center within Horton. You know, up in the north part of town, it might be more connected to the other programs, but then there's this urban center downtown that kind of is longing for some attention. And so we did a study. We looked at places in Horton where someone might go on a daily basis: the bank, the grocery store, the high school, the post office, and really found that a lot of the daily activities took place in that downtown core. And so, you know, with economic development, encouraging development, as well as what's already there to draw people in, it made sense to put it downtown. And so we have this urban downtown facade, and we chose to utilize some empty lots in that downtown facade to encourage that growth, kind of fill in the gaps. You know, for many small towns or up-and-coming towns, your downtown is your public face. That is what people remember when they come to your city. It's kind of your face towards the world. And so we really wanted to fill those in and encourage growth within that area. So zooming in, we focused on this block. Right here is the current community center. And so these diagrams up here, we started looking at where has the community really come together in the past, present, hopefully the future. And so in the past, they, Connie, I remember you talking about how on a Saturday night downtown Horton, everybody was dressed up and it was just full of life. And so that's where the community really was focused in the past. Presently, there's a lot of activity in this community building with Reinvent Horton. The Facebook posts say, everybody meet at the community building Saturday morning, and that's where we're gonna gather. So what we want to do in the future is kind of encourage that to go up into this block, and then the goal being to really bring this area all back together again, and that sense of a tight-knit community.
So here you have a streetscape render, and in the middle you have the existing buildings. And so we really wanted to draw from the existing, but pull it towards the future. So we decided to do that by using limestone as our base masonry material, but also adding lighter elements such as curtain walls and a perforated metal panel. And then at the top you can see just a different view of the downtown from the 100%.
So the screen is kind of about that past, present, future relationship. You know, you are building on this very public facade of downtown, and you don't want it to completely stick out from this historic buildings. And so we tried to make a gesture towards those old masonry structures. You can see the punched windows behind there. But covering it in this perforated metal screen to give it a more futuristic feel. The screen also has different purposes with hiding equipment up on this roof of the kitchen and mitigating some sunlight on this southern side. So I'll take you through the culinary center. This is the basement, very underground. We have mechanical rooms, locker rooms, laundry room. And then, so this would be the public street facade. Coming off the street, there's a large open lobby space, large two-story lobby space, where during the day it can be used as a reception for the culinary school with the demonstration kitchen and then the teaching kitchen and teaching bakery spaces back here. And so if you remember from the site plan, this is a corner on the end of that block. And so we grouped it with kind of more private spaces going towards public to try to bring people around. With store spacious loading docks in the back. And then on the upper floor, you have classrooms and office space. And so during the day, when culinary school is in operation, people will be occupying the offices and the classrooms. But then, shifting towards night, this building takes on kind of a new function as more of a community engagement aspect. And so you could open up the lobby and the demonstration kitchen as kind of a restaurant, a pop-up restaurant. Maybe there's a new chef in town that wants to try out a menu. This could be a space to encourage that development. And then, you know, you can hold other kinds of classes in the community at night up in this space. Structurally, we have a lightweight steel structure system, type B2, non-combustible. So the basement is just as large as it needs to be. We have slab strip footings. And then the HVAC system. So most of the building is controlled by one that goes throughout the public spaces, but then the teaching kitchen and teaching bakery have their own units in order to kind of separate. You don't want your teaching bakery smelling like the salmon that you're cooking in the other room. And so all together, you kind of see how it goes together. And so this space is actually a story and a half, where this public side is 2 stories, and that allows for there to be rooftop space for those HVAC units.
So here you can see a second perspective of the lobby space, and you can see the balcony and how you can overlook the space and have the classrooms behind it. So you can come out from your class and look over and see what's happening in the lobby, watching them. So.
And then you can see how the screen comes down. There's these clear stories windows on the south, trying to get that south light into there, and it kind of wraps around from the front where it's making a gesture over towards the back where it starts to mitigate sunlight. And then this is highlighting these rooftop units for the teaching bakery and teaching kitchen. Also the lighting in the teaching kitchen, and so presentation, as mentioned before, is very important in the aspect of culinary education. And so allowing natural light to get in, but also controlling that and having a good consistent base light for when you're preparing those meals.
So here we have some views, and in the top left corner you can see the lobby, and you can see how much light those windows and the screen let in, and it's very open. And here we show it without the tables because it's multi-purpose.
There is a storage area off this space, and so it has kind of a multi-function. You can store the tables, bring them out for events, or put them away if you need an open space.
So in the top right corner, you have a view of the lobby from that upstairs balcony, and there's tables in there. So that would be if there was an event or a restaurant, as I mentioned before. In the bottom left corner, you have a view from at night, and you can see that it really glows. And we really strive to achieve that because we wanted it to be somewhere that people would want to go at night also.
Kind of bringing back that Saturday night feeling that was mentioned before.
And then in the bottom right corner, you have the teaching kitchen. And we have those large windows that provide natural light, but we also have hanging lights because lighting in a kitchen is very important.
And so this is the elevation of the culinary school looking east. So you're on the very end of this downtown block looking that way. And so, so this is the community building where people gather now. And we added an element of that screen to kind of connect the whole thing. And so we want to draw people around this block, down here, back through, and we'll get into the food marketplace over here in a minute. But we wanted to make a gesture towards that barn shape. And just wrapping this around the building kind of encourages people to walk around that corner and see more and down towards the community building.
Daylighting was very important to our design, and we really wanted to incorporate it. So you can see how it comes in through the screen and through the curtain in the first door. So we took the perforated metal and we wanted to incorporate it somehow inside the building. And so we decided to incorporate it with the grand staircase in the lobby. So this is just a detail outlining it, and you can see the perforated metal from the screen.
And then the section of how the screen attaches to the building. And so we're talking about structure. It gets a little tricky with penetrating the roof membrane. You have a possibility for a lot of leakage. And so we try to utilize the lateral structure, connecting it to the building steel structure and providing a secondary structure for that screen to lay on top of.
Here we have a wall section of the party wall that butts up against an existing building.
So you can see that our buildings go right up against existing buildings, and so that had to be taken into consideration when placing the structure and the construction of the wall. And so this is a food marketplace on the other end of the block. And so this program was a space where people can come, different kinds of businesses have a space to sell their stuff, a space for the culinary school to sell things too, as well as a space for a farmer's market on a Saturday morning. And so this is actually the 100% corner of the downtown Horton. And so this would be a very light and open, airy space.
So here you can see a second perspective of the marketplace, and you can see how the circulation, and you can draw back. And then we chose to place the outdoor stalls in that parking lot where the community center is. And so you can really just go across and go through to the outdoor area, or you can choose to go around the corner.
We have these large steel trusses carrying the load of the roof to create that open, light feel of the space. And so you can see in the elevation, someone would be either drawn around the corner back to these outdoor stalls, see the community building in the distance, or even through. And so just encouraging that movement from this area back towards and incorporating that whole block into the redevelopment.
Here is the structure of the market, and as Katie mentioned, we wanted to use steel trusses to really make it an open field building, and it's basic to the construction, not industrial scale.
Very simple HVAC system. And so you can see there's a large amount of glass to see out to the downtown area. You see out to that 100% corner, spaces for the vendors, and you can walk straight through. And then that screen element continuing on this building, the gesture of wrapping around, controlling the sunlight from the south because there is that large glass wall. Same attachment of the structure. And so what we really want to do with these two buildings is encourage growth throughout that whole block and kind of fill in the public facade of downtown. We want to recognize the past and the history of Horton, but also bring it towards the future and in a way that connects what has been there, what is there right now, with hopefully what is going to be there.
Where we should place our site with all of those things taken into consideration.
So taking all these context into consideration, we took the homestead system as a precedent. So a homestead is a way to organize all the building on a site. So as we have 6 different buildings, we wanted them to be close together to create a complex around a main plaza. So the different buildings that we have are the education building here, so just next to the entrance. Then we have the greenhouse associated to this one. Still talking about industrial building, we have the barn links to the caretaker house, and then the dormitory. So as you can see, this is a loop going to the private to the public buildings. And then all these buildings are around this main courtyard that is split in different sub-gardens. So we have a main plaza, so just next to, a main plaza behind, between the 2 main buildings, and then a garden just for the dormitory, an experimental garden just for the greenhouse that is here, and other small gardens for the labs of the education buildings. So here's the side things that combine the garden and the buildings. So as you can see, there's the land just around our complex over there. We're going to start with the main building, which is the education buildings, with the main plaza just here. So this is a very open building with all glass, concrete, and wood. So how it is organized inside is that we have this main lobby here that is that connects all our different program elements. So we have the administration here, event space here that can be used as a multimedia room, and we have the labs just behind the main stairs. On the floor just below we have another lab that has its own access to his garden here, And moving back to the top level, we have this observation deck that has a terrace that allows you to see the whole farm. So it's here in the model, and you can see the whole farm here.
And that was one of the primary drivers for the original organization of our site, was kind of rotating our main building to give access and be used for that observation deck out of the entire farmland to kind of give these educational views out of the entire site.
So here's the section for you to get in the buildings more easily. So the main space here is connected to the observation deck. So it's a really open area mixing between indoor space and outdoor space. And on the sides we have administration and event space. So this section is just here on the education building, just to show you that our event space can be totally in the dark if you want to project some presentation. So thanks to the system numbers here and how it is related to the observation deck terrace over there. So another section on the education building, just to show you that our two labs have an access to the garden. So the main lab have an access to the garden on this floor, so the main floor of the complex, and the second lab has an access to his own garden, so at the bottom of the complex. And this is the main lobby. So we were talking about this huge area that connects all the different rooms.
And so what we did was we placed our mechanical system beneath, kind of tucked under into the landscape under our cantilever. That way it could serve the entire building kind of from the most central location. And so everything kind of radiates from that central point from a systematic standpoint. Transitioning into the greenhouse, this was supposed to be kind of an educational experimental greenhouse.
Can I ask you a real quick question before you go on? Just to orient myself, is up north?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the highway
The highway is
to
to the left. Yep.
The lake is,
Down this way. Yep.
got it,
And
okay.
then everything is oriented in that manner.
Got it, okay.
It was important for us, since this is an educational kind of experimental greenhouse, we wanted it as kind of next to the labs, so they're kind of a direct connection as far as the organization of the property. And so we placed them next to it. And the other thing that was important was that we bermed it into the topography of the land, so you can kind of see we have this shape here, and so that it faces south, and obviously has a glazing towards the south that has the optimal solar gain. So as you can see that here, working with the berm. Another reason that we wanted to berm it too is it's a rather large structure, and we didn't want it to be extremely prominent on the rest of the property. So it had a few reasons to do so. Just quickly in plan, you can kind of start to see a little bit more of the industrial connection we have here with the whole entire greenhouse, with the service road connecting everything with the barn on the side. Here's a section cutting through the greenhouse, taking a look at the education center beyond. And then we always have keys up here in the top right corner if you need an orientation of which direction we're looking here. So this just is kind of showing the connection of how you can enter on both levels with the topography and how it's connected to the education center beyond. And so this is inside of our greenhouse. We have kind of lower leveled plants, and then more of the raised plants as well inside, and then looking out to the land beyond. Just a quick section here showing that greenhouses need ventilation and shading and everything like that. So we've got our systems implemented for that, as well as kind of our big thermal backing that can kind of collect some energy there as well. Quickly talking about two of the smaller portions of the project. The barn the main one on the right, and the caretaker home that kind of oversees the entire site. We wanted to place the caretaker home so that it wasn't directly on top of everything, but was close enough that it could operate the industrial side as well as the residential side of the dormitory. So it's kind of that public-private that we were talking about, and this is where it kind of bridges together. And so you can kind of see in section, another thing that we tried to continue on was, just along with the idea of the homestead, was just the idea of simple kind of traditional shapes that are typical to rural areas, whether they're pitched roofs or flat roofs. We've kind of got them all, and we kind of mix and match them based on visual cues.
So we're gonna finish with this last building, so the dormitory building. So this building is split in two, with a common area here and the private area with the dorms over there. So as you can see, there's the plaza that connects this building with the education buildings. So the plans where you can see the progression of when you get in the building, so from the entrance in the lobby here through your rooms over there. Talking about the system, as we have two different types of buildings, so a really common area and private use, we have two different systems, even if it's the same structure. So this section is just to show that, so as I said, we took traditional shape, so pitch roof and wood.
Important and how that could revitalize the economy that has currently had issues just from the farm town deterioration. Our goal for this project is to rethink how you would learn about organic farming and how that would affect the economy, how people could come and learn about organic farming, and this could be a drive in the economy.
And I'm Reagan.
I'm Alex. As you've seen before, this is Horton here. This is the downtown region where you just saw the last project. Our site is right up the road here, right up on the tip of Mission Lake.
So zooming in on our site, we decided to place our building kind of where the existing homestead is located, and then we placed our dorm building further south to kind of give it more privacy from the main building. And one thing that we really were interested in from the start was incorporating this pathway that you could experience as you walked around the site as a visitor. So that pathway is only like about a mile long, and it just kind of puts you within the landscape itself. And the space within the pathway is about 20 acres of land, which is going to be the organic farmland with the additional real estate development located on the northern part of the site. So when you're kind of approaching the site, you drive up this driveway towards the main building, and you already kind of get an idea of the terracing that we're trying to accomplish within our building, because the landscape itself is naturally terraced, so we try to not disturb that kind of feeling within our infrastructure. So we terraced our parking lot as you were driving towards the building. And then when you're walking around the site itself on that mile-long pathway, you're kind of experiencing the landscape in different ways. In some places it's elevated as seen here. In some places it's recessed down into the earth to give you kind of different experiences as your journey continues around the site. And in addition to kind of incorporating the natural pathway, we also try to incorporate rainwater retention to kind of give visitors kind of open up that experience to visitors so that they learn more about how that process is done. So we're salvaging rainwater from the rooftops to irrigate the farmland in front of the site. So you can also experience this pathway when you're near the building itself. And then our building is mainly earth covered, which has kind of the thermal mass insulation. And we're also doing geothermal walls, and you said that you already have that on the site itself, so that's a good coincidence. And then we also have louvers on the main southern exposure.
Okay, so conceptually, what we wanted to do with our building was make it a part of your landscape. We didn't want it to be something that was just stuck on there. We wanted it to essentially be part of your path. It is something that you encounter, it helps you understand the land that you are studying while you're there. So we started with the existing topography on the site, and then we abstracted it into forms that would work better for build materials. From there, we pushed and pulled the landscape to pull these buildings out of the land and push them down in places in order to get sunlight and allow our program to fit into the building. From there, we added our greenhouse on, and we wanted to follow the topography in the same sort of way we had before, but we wanted to maximize solar gain with it. So this is where it ended up laying out. From there, we recessed the interior part between these buildings into an open courtyard area that we'll go into after. That becomes a part of your path, and it's how you navigate all these buildings, and it's essentially your beginning way of navigating this entire site. So going into more detail into this education complex in particular, we're going to look particularly at the greenhouse, the courtyard, and then the education complex. Those are kind of our three big main parts of this building. Sorry, big file. So to begin, our courtyard, it became more of not the most important space, but it became the way you understood all the spaces around you. You enter, it's a sloped courtyard, so you're submerged into the earth from the moment you get there. You're immediately immersed into this natural feeling. You're there to be a part of the land. So as you move through the site, you see that this inner courtyard becomes a space that has these different levels that help you understand the area you're in from different vantage points. And the building all just becomes entirely about your path. You move through the building and understand things in different ways. You're able to see out into the farmland. You're able to go into these different multimedia areas and whatnot from this courtyard. As you can see in the courtyard, we wanted it to feel like you really were submerging into the ground. You're becoming a part of this landscape that you're there to study. So we chose materials inside this courtyard that's very natural materials. We have this wood louver system that acts for sun shading as well as making you feel like you're in a natural place. You can see that in detail here. The facade system is treated oak panels that connect into a steel frame that are then mounted into the concrete structure.
Moving into the greenhouse building, as Alex mentioned, it's kind of the southernmost portion of our complex, and we really wanted it to feel like it was connected to the landscape outside of the structure. We didn't want it to feel like it was kind of pushed off to one side. The space has many different types of planter beds, and we also wanted it to be flexible for different events that could take place within there. And then we have an upper level mezzanine where you can observe the farmland and also look down into the greenhouse itself, and that kind of immerses the visitor within the context of where they're at on the farm site and within the building, and they get a better understanding from up above of what's happening in the landscape. And then in the section you can kind of see how the greenhouse is extended towards the south, but we also wanted it to not just be an extension there, we also wanted to incorporate plant life within our building. And so you can see on the left side, right here, we have a terraced light well, which kind of, as you descend from the first level to the lower level, you kind of start to get an understanding of what the building is about and kind of a preview of what's to come later on. And then this is just a bigger, larger detail of the greenhouse itself. You can see the different types of planter beds, and it's terraced as well to kind of mimic how our site and structure are terraced.
So moving into the education facility, you can see right here, this is a render of that interior, or exterior light well going on. So when you're in these spaces, you feel like you're a part of the landscape as well. You're not in an industrialized or an institutional building for education. It's still all about the land. You can see that same sort of thing in our event space. We have a double high, very open event space, so you could do almost anything you want. And honestly, you can set up projectors or do whatever it is you need to do. We're also incorporating this green wall in here for acoustic purposes as well as connecting with the landscape as much as we possibly can. That whole wall is a buried wall, so we wanted to kind of mimic the fact that it's part of the landscape. You can see in section here, part of the systems that we've incorporated into this education building is this back plenum wall. We're burying this whole part of the earth, so we were kind of trying to figure out how are we actually going to get services from the road into our building since we're this far underground. So we wanted to incorporate this plenum wall essentially that hits all the spaces that we need to have our systems in. And so you can see here that this plenum wall houses our HVAC, our water and heating, as well as drainage from the green roofs and our fire safety systems. And all of these systems would run through this back plenum wall to each of the spaces and then break out through the ceiling when between the columns, or between the beams.
So moving away from the education complex, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner, we're moving further south on the site where the dormitory complex is located, which would house farmers or students or anyone who needed a place to stay while they were learning more about farm practices. And a big part that we wanted for our dormitory building was for it not to just be a private place separated from the visitors. We wanted it to somehow be incorporated with that, and so how we did that was kind of berming up the landscape over a large portion of it so that people can actually access the top of that rooftop from the pathway, and they can also use the lower portion for lunches, meetings, speeches, just a resting place when they're walking around. And so you can see that section, that top berming pathway, and then the lower seating area, which has a bathroom, a public bathroom that's accessible from the outside. And then from the approach from the private side of the dormitory, you can see that it's terraced just like every other part of our project, and it's facing south to give optimal sunlight and views out into the farmland. So you can see that terracing aspect in section here. And with our terracing, we also wanted to reiterate the concept of reusing water. And so we have the green roofs, which drain into kind of a swale pond system, which you're able to get right up close to, and you kind of gain more knowledge of how those kinds of systems work and more understanding of how their water can be reutilized.
Well, that concludes our presentation for the most part. Basically, what we wanted to take away from this is that we wanted to rethink how you understand an organic farm. We wanted to immerse you in the land, to get up close and personal with it. Part of our project, though, we had to have some sort of observation tower out into the landscape, and we kind of decided, no, we're not going to do that. We decided instead, we don't want you to be up somewhere that you can see it. We want you to be out in the land. You want to be up close and personal with it and feel like you're a part of it. So that's what we tried to do here.
It's so great to have you to our Horton Reservoir Hotel, which focuses on the prairie, the pond, and the city beyond. So the first two groups kind of give really great overviews of Horton and where it's located at, and kind of what the different sites are. And like Todd said, we are focusing on the lodge component located out of the lake sites. That includes hotel rooms, meeting rooms, conference center, a destination restaurant, as well as guest cabins throughout our property.
And Don covered it actually pretty well. Just a brief history of Horton. More or less started off as an agricultural community, had a slight boom with the railroad throughout the early 20th century, and then had a more or less gradual decline through the latter half of the 20th century. This photo is actually given our site. This is a photo of the dam a year after it was built. They were repairing it after some heavy rains. But one thing that we really noticed is that the dam is this very important thing to Horton, not only as a water source, obviously, but as the lake, as a recreation area, and as sort of a landmark. And so just to go through our presentation, give you a brief overview, building on success, making connections, and we'll go through all these in detail, obviously, creating an extension of the dam, and then sort of embracing the idea of the spillway as a sort of connection of that dam. This makes it all up, I think. There we go. Okay. There's a lot of data on this slide. So to the very left here, we have the outline of Horton proper. We have the major downtown area here, and then the two sort of major highways that bisect the town. That's how most people sort of come in and out of town. And as I hinted at earlier, the one thing that we noticed when we talked with residents of Horton was that one of the major amenities that the city has is the camping community. This thing is barely showing up. I don't know. The sort of camping community that exists on both sides of the lake here. And so we really wanted to sort of work with that as an ongoing success. So when we chose our site at the south end of the lake where the dam is here, we saw a great opportunity to sort of connect that camping community around the south end of the lake. And then once we established that we could sort of form a bridge between these two sides of the lake, we looked at how we could get that sort of positive energy, if you will, down into the downtown area, maybe it's via a bike trail, some sort of pedestrian walkway, something of that nature. And before we sort of jump into it, just here's an overall look at our site, and I'll go through sort of, I have a bunch of diagrams that detail out why we chose what and put it where. So here are the main access routes. We have our main hotel lodge component is this large bar here, this thing here. And then our restaurant is a separate building, which Devin will get into a little bit later. But the main access routes, most visitors will come north up from the main highway and then exit, or and then enter from the northwest. We've provided parking around here. Likewise, this is our service entrance for any sort of trucks or anything that needs to go down below to get things into our meeting rooms. And the restaurant has its own separate entrance. And then, like I said earlier, we really noticed the dam is this very important thing. And so we wanted to sort of tie our building to that, but also in doing that, we really sort of wanted to really preserve this nice prairie landscape out here. So we've pushed the building up as far as possible, as close as possible to the dam to sort of work with that. And the other thing that we noticed is that there are already a lot of existing facilities up on this north end here. There's a basketball court, basketball court, a beach volleyball court, and then there's obviously the boat launch there. So we wanted to keep those intact.
And kind of play with those amenities that are already existing and kind of build them off.
Right. And so in building off of those sort of existing successes, the campsites, the sort of dams, this nice natural landscape that has to the south of it. We wanted to sort of add on to that and provide not only this sort of outdoor restroom facility here, but also to add on our program that we did through the studio.
And so to kind of break down our program of the building, this axon view kind of highlights each element of our building to kind of give you a general layout. So like Jeff said, you enter in from this kind of at the same level as the dam. And so this is our main lobby entrance here. So you kind of walk in, you get a view of the lake and a view out towards the prairie. And this lobby has our main vertical circulation elements through it. So moving up to the third level, we have our hotel lounge with views out towards the prairie and the lake, with also access up to the upper level of that as well for possible outdoor events. And then moving back to the second level, we have a long hallway that faces towards the lake that connects all of these elements on this level, which is our conference room as well as our kind of hotel rooms with supporting service space. And then moving down another level, we have our flex space here that is kind of where breakfast will be served for the guests or extra overflow meeting room space. The yellow is our pre-function space that fronts our meeting room space here, and all this views out and has access out to the prairie. And then the darker black color is all of our service space, which supports this meeting room, and there's a service elevator that connects from here up to this service pod here. And then over here is our destination restaurant. So the architecture relates to it, but it's a separate structure for developmental standpoint. So we have our main restaurant located up here with our two dining rooms, a bar area, and our kitchen, and then service space below with access of loading and unloading. construction perspective, cut is cut through our main lobby space. You can see those 3 levels stacking here. And then you can see how it kind of stretches out through our whole building, and the use of the concrete and the metal meshes to create sort of sculptural pieces to kind of highlight that main entrance space, as well as the restaurant. And Jeff will touch on this a bit more, but we wanted to use this kind of heavy concrete material on the lower half to signify the dam, and then a lighter structure above to kind of create more flowing feeling on the upper part. And so this is just a rendering of our lobby space here, of how guests would enter. We wanted to kind of use materials to kind of signify wayfinding. So we have this wood kind of slat elements to help signify our hotel guests kind of where to move to the front desk, and then where to move down to their hotel rooms here. And then this is our main vertical circulation, like I said. It's really open an area to kind of bring all that light from the 3rd level down to the lower level, and easy wayfinding for guests as well. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, the idea of making these connections from both sides of the lake was really important to us. So obviously our building kind of fronting this whole dam area makes that connection, but making sure that we have the pedestrian pathways for people to move across that dam area and make it a really enjoyable space to be, because currently it's, I mean, you can walk across it, but it doesn't seem like it's used as often. So making those connections to the side. And then having those views both out to the prairie and the lake, it would seem easy to kind of just front the lake. You know, lake seems really important, but we were really drawn to that whole prairie area. And in the site plan, you can kind of see in our model here, there's a nice small pond reservoir that fronts that. And then obviously looking towards the city, which is really important for us to get those camp tourists down and the lodge tourists down to the city. So having a major views out towards that way to really have our front door essentially to the city, what we thought was really important. And this is just a rendering of a typical hotel room, and you can see we have a large outdoor space here for our hotel guests that overlook this beautiful prairie area with the pond and the city beyond as well. And then this is just a section through that hotel room that was right here, and you can kind of see how we've raised up this element to allow that prairie to really move through it, and then having these kind of slatted elements throughout, and our pre-parking space spilling out into this meeting room area and the hallway looking out towards the lake. And then another element of creating connection with the prairie is our guest cabins that were part of our program, and we sunk them down about 4 feet into the ground, and then slanted the roofs to allow for this prairie element to grow over it. So as you can see, all the cabins are kind of facing out toward the city, so then when a guest is in the hotel room and they look out, they just kind of see this undulation into the prairie and not like a whole structure out there, so that we're really trying to preserve that look for them, but also give our guest cabins that same integrated feeling within the landscape as well.
And so in one of the things, in siting our building so close to this dam, we really wanted to form that connection, as I had said earlier. So one of the ways in which we did that was through the massing of our building. And if you look at the model here, it's a bit abstract because it's such a small scale. But we really wanted to have this base level as this very sort of dense concrete material. There's still obviously views out to the prairie, but it's this sort of sedimentary solid thing that goes across. And then it has this sort of lighter steel structure on top that sort of signifies that this thing is sort of sitting on top of this solid mass. And then the other thing in sort of orienting people as they come in was to sort of make that clear right away. So the approach lines up right on the crest of the dam, so as visitors are coming in, not only do they see the pathway here that goes right across the crest of the dam, they see the lake off to the left, and then they see this prairie land off to the right, and they get just this little hint of this solid sort of mass. So everything is sort of laid out up front, so there's no disconnections there with visitors. Again, looking at the section from before, but you can see just how solid the structure is. It actually had to be for this large green room. But we've also sort of borrowed elements from dam construction that you can see in slightly more industrialized dams, so sort of hinting at that within the structure. And then again, you can also just see just how light the structure is on top here.
And then our final point is the idea of the spillway. So obviously dams are built to hold the water back, but they have the ability to control the release of water as well. So we wanted to signify that within our design. So in this diagram, the orange elements are kind of signifying where landscape is able to move, or at least visually look like it's moving through our building. And then we have a major element here in the red, which is our pedestrian spillway, which allows guests to move from this upper lake level down to the prairie level. And then this is actually the existing spillway for the dam here, which we kept intact, which we have a pedestrian bridge across it, which we thought could be interesting to understand what is actually currently there. And so this is a rendering of our pedestrian spillway. You can see it's about 50 feet wide, so it's a nice open area for people to move through, and we still have kind of a pedestrian bridge for people to connect from the hotel over to the restaurant and some outdoor eating for our restaurant to really be able to interact with all this activity going on within that spillway area. And then in this elevation here, and this graphic kind of shows the undulation of the elements of where the kind of spillway would happen with our green roof of the landscape and kind of in between these hotel rooms and then our pedestrian spillway right here. And then this is just a section through the spillway, so you can see how gradual that slope is to kind of make it a nice movement down through the pedestrian spillway.
So our group really started looking into Reinvent Horton, and we noticed a lot of activity happening in the downtown area, really revitalizing the downtown area of Horton. And what we noticed was there wasn't a lot of activity up by Mission Lake, which you said was a massive asset to the town and really help define the town. So our idea was really to spread the influence of Reinvent Horton towards Mission Lake.
Next is Eagle Day. You guys told us one of your suggestions was that you really liked the possible tourism incubator of people coming and doing bird watching by the lake. That eagles come a couple weeks out of the summer and just perch around there. So we kind of played off of that idea, and that's how we kind of came to the nest concept. Going through some of our schematics, we started out with a nest sketch. This kind of just showed a little bit of the constructability of what we wanted to go for. So we actually got a nest out of the tree and started looking at how it were put together. Second, the regulating lines on this sketch started to overlap each other and create our building forms, but this was just the lines started to come about with just a geometric interplay with the shoreline of the lake. So that's how it kind of began to take on this, almost looks like a butterfly form. The third one, we started to massage out the final building massings, and the fourth there, finally we wanted to start to massage the last of it out with spacing the buildings, with the massings, with the sizings of everything, so that everything had good use to either the lake or to the center nest area, which is the yellow that you see there. So how does the nest inspire the design? We started out with a couple of massing models, and what we got from this was just some of the intersecting pieces. You'll see in our shading device later that will show you. Plays up to the constructability of a nest, this idea of weaving, twigs overlapping. Nothing's ever really comes to a clean point. Secondly, just how we wanted some of the spaces to overlap each other through structure.
For our program, we decided to split our program into some major areas, so then we can make a complex, and this complex makes it easier for the expansion and for the people for this area. And we wanted our entrance to be directly to the nest, so that people have access to all the buildings around it, and then they have overview toward the lake from the nest. The other thing is that we try to split these buildings so then each building can have its own parking lot, and it's very easy to access. Another point is that the complex is very accessible from the outside people. So if someone is not a guest and is not staying there for a night, so then they can easily come there and enjoy the restaurant, which is completely separate from the other programs of in the site.
Some of the site details that we wanted to go with, you can see very clearly on the model as well. A couple of things where we want to have porous pavers out in our parking lot, be able to kind of play into the drainage on the site. That's where a lot of that line, the line work from that light green color is moving throughout the site. That's where our drainage is going to kind of work through. That middle area is our shading device, which we'll expand on a little bit later. We have a couple of rain gardens stationed throughout that the bioswales feed into as they move down into the lake. We've got a pot for the bioswale itself. Then we've got our recreation area where we've got tennis courts and volleyball. And that's far enough removed so it's private and only used for the people that are actually staying there at the lodging center, but it's visually accessible for people that are maybe just visiting for a day and they see it and it's rouses their curiosity. Maybe they do want to stay here longer than just today. So you can see it from just the restaurant and the conference center.
So this is a sun shading study, and really what our main goal was to get sunlight throughout the entire day, throughout the entire year into the nest area. That was going to be our central core, our activity, our recreation space. And so we designed our buildings and made our masses so that we could incorporate as much daylight as possible, and then obviously during the summer months having that shading to provide thermal comfort for all of our guests.
So the shading device. So let's just do some of our sketches, and this just kind of was an experimentation on how the nest was going to be shaped by the shading device, whether we wanted to have several smaller ones or a couple of larger ones. We decided to go with 3 bigger ones. This is going to be a huge element just to move people through this site in the direction that we wanted them to go, but at the same time, it was going to be a wayfinding element. From every building, they could look out into the middle and say, hey, I want to meet at the nest, meet there. And everybody understood where that was because of just from the start to the end of the shading device, it grows quite a bit larger so that you understand exactly where you are throughout the site, and you can see that from inside of each of the buildings.
So before I start talking about the lobby and restaurant, I want to note this little key up here, which is to help you guys understand exactly where we're at in terms of the complex. So this is a view of the approach to our building. The lobby right here, conference center right here, and this is actually the lodging right here. And obviously you can see the nest having a very, very strong presence in our entire complex. And the approach to the hotel actually is a very human scale, 1 story, and so it's very inviting. And then obviously the nice wooden pathways going around the entire site. These are floor plans of the lobby and restaurant. Lobby right here on the south, lodge in the middle, and then flex area and open kitchen right here. And then on the second floor, just restaurant dining, seating, private dining, back of house, that kind of stuff. And then these are views. This top view would be an entrance into the restaurant area, which is. So just to continue, sorry about that. This view would be the restaurant entrance, which is right here. And then this view would be the pathway from the lobby out into the nest. And so sustainability was a massive driving factor of our design. Having the sawtooth roof, as you can see up top, allowing winter sun in through those clear stories, but blocking summer sun with the overhanging roofs. Having windows that were south and southwest facing to allow for wind during the warmer months. And then those clear stories also being a hot air release valve, and then this large thermal wall to block the north and northwest winds during the colder months, as well as be a heat sink during the warmer months. And so this is just a detail of the open kitchen. We wanted the experience of the restaurant to be highlighted with this open kitchen, being able to see into the depths of the kitchen, being able to see people prepare your food. I think is a very neat idea. And having counter space right here, and then obviously the restaurant seating would be back towards that way.
So this is our conference center, and you can see here, we'll walk through just the spaces a little bit. This is our pre-function space where everybody will come when they initially arrive. This is mechanical mezzanine and general storage down here. So it's a smaller first floor and builds up to a larger second floor. On the second floor, coming up here, you've got a smaller conference room area. can fit about 20 people. You've got your lounge area in this one, just out in shape like this because we wanted people to be able to relax to see out into the nest area. We wanted this to be a little bit more of an escape for anybody that was in the meeting and wanted to get out here, maybe have a lunch or just see out into the lake. Just get it a really relaxing, peaceful area kind of away from all the business that was happening, the hustle and bustle that's going on inside here. This quarter played a big part in our sustainability that I'll show you next, where we've got our bathroom floor, our first meeting room, second meeting room, and then this is going to be a vertical accordion wall that comes up, and when it moves up, the entire room can be opened up into one large meeting room space. Sustainability, I love saying things that Neil just explained in mine. We have a thermal wall, also something that wasn't mentioned in the winter months. This will play a big part in storing a lot of that heat that's going to come in from the sun here. And keeping this water open to the south with the glazing will let all that light come in and heat up this wall. Yeah, it's all the same stuff here.
So the lodge is located in the south side of the complex, and we tried to make that all the rooms have to be in an orientation that have best view toward the lake. We put the lobby area right on the very top, which is a very direct connection to the nest, so it acts as a buffer between the nest and rooms, and also it's like a really good connection. The service areas are more in the very end of the corridor, and this is a two-story building. We also take a very precise look at the sustainable design in the lodge too. So we try to have blueberries and all the sustainable design in our building.
So these are the cabins. We have two different styles. First one being like a one family, and the second style being a two family or multi-family, all having views out towards the east, which is where the lake is at. And then you can see in the elevation up here that it's kind of its own community. It's somewhat disconnected from the complex, but not entirely, but it's supposed to be the more private kind of area as opposed to the nest, which is the public area. And so these are just a couple renderings that we're going to cycle through, this being the lounge of the lobby building, this being the flex area restaurant dining. And this is the approach into, this is the lobby right here, this is where people would check in. This is the drop off would be out just out this way.
And this is the conference center that will look like on the inside. We've got acoustic panels to help with the flutter effect. Next we got the conference room that's off to the left when you the center inside.
There are some renderings from the lodge, the lobby on the second floor, and the overview toward the lodge and the nest. And the first lobby area and one of the room layout.
This is an interior view of what the cabins would look like, just having a nice warm wood, being at one with nature, really having a good line of sight towards the lake as well, and just being a very open space so that it's a small square footage so people can circulate, plenty of room for activities, that kind of thing, and a nice patio for viewing towards the lake. And this is an exterior rendering of those cabins. You can see how it's just kind of formed into the grassland, and it's got this nice wood, rustic materials, and trees for privacy in between the cabins and then the patio again for viewing towards the lake.
We still some enough because we want to feel like perches.